note beside her coffee said, "Leave now or Gabriel dies with the evidence," so she ran into the rain with the flash drive. The handoff was supposed to be controlled. Lawyers, federal contacts, private dining room, enough people to prevent violence. Then a server slipped Nora a warning, and she understood DeMarco's plan instantly. If Gabriel reacted, he would become exactly the violent man his enemies wanted the city to see. So Nora grabbed the evidence and walked out alone. In the rain, a black sedan pulled up. A man with an umbrella called her name. Gabriel's voice came through her phone, low and lethal, telling her not to turn around. Nora had discovered the truth, but now she had to survive long enough to deliver it. "All right, let's talk about the kind of mistake that looks tiny at first, then tears a life wide open." Nora Parker was not looking for trouble. She was a quiet accountant in a borrowed dress, trying to survive a mansion party in Lake Forest without embarrassing herself. Then her hand shook. Champagne spilled across Gabriel Moretti's suit. Not just any man. Gabriel Moretti, the name people in Chicago lowered their voices to say. One clumsy second, one ruined jacket, and suddenly the most dangerous man in the room was looking only at her. Before that night, Nora's life was painfully ordinary. No black cars outside her building. No strangers watching her window. Just a cramped Logan Square apartment, a broken zipper, and a borrowed navy dress that refused to cooperate. She stood barefoot in front of the mirror, while her mother, Elaine, pushed her through the phone to attend the party. Around her were all the familiar pieces of her real life: a dirty coffee mug, a glowing laptop, unpaid work waiting. Everything in her wanted to stay home. But guilt has a way of sounding exactly like duty. Under a cheap coupon booklet sat the unpaid bills Nora kept pretending not to see. On the windowsill, a sad basil plant drooped in its pot, looking almost as tired as she felt. She tried to get out of the party by suggesting a gift card, but Elaine shut that down immediately. Of course. It came back to Madison Vale, the perfect cousin in white silk who seemed born knowing how to smile for rich people. Nora had spent most of her life standing beside women like Madison and feeling like an apology in human form. Nora touched the dresser, where a photo of her late father sat in a plain wooden frame. He had been gone 7 years, but he was still the one person who could steady her. Then Elaine used the argument Nora never knew how to fight. Her father would have wanted her to go. That was enough, sap. Nora forced the zipper up and stared at herself in the mirror, feeling like someone sneaking into the wrong life. Elaine told her to make accounting sound more impressive. Maybe say she prevented corporate theft. Nora almost laughed. A prettier title would not make her feel any less out of place. A car horn cut through the apartment. Her ride was waiting. Chicago outside looked cold and gray, the kind of evening that made every window glow like a warning. Messy apartment, the one place where nobody measured her against anyone else. Then she left. As the car headed north, crowded streets gave way to dark mansions behind gates and iron fences. Nora watched her reflection in the glass. Shoulders tight, hands locked together. By the time the city disappeared behind her, she already wished she had listened to herself. The car turned onto a private road lined with old trees and iron lamps. At the end stood the kind of estate that did not need to brag because the driveway did it for you. Nora's stomach dropped. Outside, guests moved with the careless ease of people who had never worried about overdue bills. Diamonds flashed. Laughter floated through the cold air. Someone discussed $1 million merger as if it were dinner gossip. Every instinct in Nora told her to turn around. Instead, she stepped out of the car, because disappointing her family somehow felt worse than disappointing herself. At the entrance, security checked her ID, and hearing her own name in that place felt strange, like it belonged to someone else. Inside the ballroom, the wealth hit her all at once. Crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, waiters carrying silver trays. The whole room seemed designed to remind ordinary people they were guests only by mistake. Nora clutched her coat like armor and searched for one friendly face. Madison came gliding toward her in ivory silk, smiling perfectly. Her hug was careful, light, almost staged as if affection might ruin her hair. Madison knew how to insult someone without ever sounding rude. She glanced at Nora's dress and called it practical, which somehow hurt more than an outright insult. Then she told Nora to relax, as if anxiety were a stain she should have remembered to wipe off. Nora smiled because politeness was easier than making a scene. When Madison drifted away, Nora saw her pause beside a man with silver hair and a thin smile. Madison leaned in, laughed softly, and showed him something on her phone. At the time, Nora thought nothing of it. Her family had always made her feel like a side note, the quiet daughter, the payroll girl, the one who kept things balanced but never interesting. Even strangers seemed to join in, whispering about her logistics job, as if she spent her life moving boxes around a warehouse. It stung, but she stayed because of family, because of her father, because leaving would give everyone another reason to talk. Then the ballroom began to feel too bright, too loud, too airless. Nora slipped through a side door, needing only a minute away from the polished smiles. She did not notice the hallway was guarded. The hallway was dim and quiet, a sharp contrast to the music behind her. Nora walked faster, searching for a bathroom or an empty sitting room, anything that looked safe. Then she heard voices behind a door left slightly open. An older man warned that the DeMarco family would not accept a transition without blood. A colder voice answered that they could choke on their traditions. Nora stopped breathing. She did not understand everything, but she understood enough. Those were not business talks. Those were men discussing violence as if it were paperwork. The cold voice belonged to someone used to being obeyed. Another man mentioned Adrian DeMarco and said he did not negotiate when cornered. The voice dismissed him as if DeMarco were barely worth the oxygen. Nora tried to step back, but fear made her clumsy. Her heel caught. She bumped into a server. Champagne splashed cold across her wrist, and then she crashed into something solid. Not a wall, a man. The glass tipped and a dark stain spread across the front of his suit. The hallway went silent so fast it felt like the air had been cut. The man in front of her looked like danger dressed for a gala. Dark hair slicked back. Sharp jaw. Eyes so still they gave away nothing. He did not shout. He did not move. That made it worse. Nora stared at the ruined suit and began talking too fast, offering to pay for dry cleaning, then suggesting a structured payment plan because her panicked mind had grabbed the only language it trusted. Numbers, interest, installments, anything normal. The guards behind him did not laugh. One of them slowly lowered his hand toward his jacket. Nora kept talking because silence felt more dangerous. She explained that she was an accountant and could set up payments if the suit was custom, which from the look of it, it probably was. The man watched her as if she were something rare and deeply confusing. When he asked for her name, she gave it before she could think. Nora Parker. He repeated it softly like he was filing it away. Then she asked who he was. The guards froze, genuinely horrified. Nora realized too late that she had just asked a question everyone else in that hallway already knew the answer to. A guard murmured Mr. Moretti, and the name hit Nora like ice water. Gabriel Moretti. She knew it from rumors, headlines, whispered stories at work. Judges, unions, bodies that never made the news twice. Her heart slammed so hard she thought he could hear it. Still, the first thing out of her mouth was, "I ruined your suit." It was ridiculous, but it was true, and truth was all she had left. Gabriel studied her for another long second, then said he believed her. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. That scared her more than anger would have. Nora tried to leave before her knees gave out. Gabriel did not grab her. He did not have to. He simply stepped aside and let her take 3 shaky steps toward the ballroom. Then his voice followed her. "Keep your payment schedule," he said. "I want to see how an honest woman calculates disaster." Nora stopped just long enough to feel the words settle under her skin. Behind her, the guards were still watching. The music kept playing as if nothing had happened. She walked back into the party, knowing she had not escaped anything. She had only been noticed. The ballroom felt different when Nora returned. The music was too sharp, the lights too bright, and every laugh sounded like it belonged to another world. Madison saw her face and immediately knew something was wrong. Then Gabriel entered. He had not changed suits. The champagne stain was still there, dark against the expensive fabric, but he wore it like a deliberate choice. The crowd shifted around him without anyone saying a word. Men stepped aside. Women stopped mid-sentence. Nora understood then that power was not always loud. Sometimes it simply entered a room and made everyone pretend not to stare. Madison's smile vanished when she saw the stain. "You offered Gabriel Moretti dry cleaning money," she whispered, as if Nora had announced her own funeral. To Madison, Gabriel was not a man you apologized to. He was someone powerful families avoided angering by instinct. Nora tried to explain, but Madison's panic only made her more frightened. Across the room, Gabriel looked directly at her. Not a glance. Not an accident. A steady, unmistakable look. The message was clear enough that Nora felt it in her ribs. She could disappear into any corner she wanted. He would still know exactly where she was. The name already moved through the party like smoke. People whispered. Shoulders turned. The mansion suddenly felt smaller. The chandeliers heavier. The air thinner. Gabriel did not raise his voice to command the room. He did not need to. Nora watched confident men become careful around him. Watched women measure their smiles before offering them. He was calm in a way that felt practiced. Almost polished by violence. Near the bar, the silver-haired man Madison had spoken to flicked open a lighter, then snapped it shut. His eyes were on Nora, too. Needed to leave. Madison was too frightened to help, and that frightened Nora even more. She thanked a maid too loudly, stumbled through the wrong doorway, and finally made it outside into the freezing air. Champagne still clung damply to her dress. Her breath shook in front of her. A black car rolled up along the drive, slow and silent. She stared at it, knowing before the window lowered who was inside. Behind her, the mansion glowed with warmth and music. In front of her, the car waited like a decision someone else had already made. And Gabriel sat half hidden in shadow. When he said her name, she felt it like a hand closing around the back of her neck. Nora forced herself to stand straight and offered again to pay for the suit. He cut that off with 2 words, no need. Then he asked if she was afraid. She looked back toward the party, toward her family, and all those bright, useless windows. No one was coming after her, so she turned back to him. That was the first real crack. The moment a dangerous man felt closer than the people who were supposed to be safe. Nora used sarcasm because panic needed somewhere to go. Gabriel noticed, of course. He seemed amused by her sharp little answers, as if no one had spoken to him like a person in years. And he told her to call him Gabriel, making the moment feel strangely personal. She told herself the encounter was over. When the car drove away, it was not. Minutes later, her phone buzzed. The suit survived. The message was simple enough to make her laugh, which made it dangerous. Instead of deleting it, Nora stared at the screen until her thumb moved. Gabriel replied as if the ruined suit had a personality and had chosen forgiveness. It was clever, dry, almost normal. Nora laughed for real then, alone on the sidewalk, and the terror in her chest loosened by a fraction. By the time she reached her old apartment building, the elevators squeaked, and the peeling hallway paint felt dull in a way they never had before. Home was still home, but something had followed her back. She leaned against her door, smiling at her phone. Even a quiet part of her wondered how he had gotten her number so quickly. She turned the phone face down and lasted less than a minute. When it buzzed again, her pulse jumped. She accused him of leaving the party too quickly, trying to sound unimpressed. Gabriel answered with a line about her reputation for honesty, reminding her without saying it directly that he already knew things about her. Then he brushed off his own terrifying reputation, saying people talk too much. It was smooth, almost lazy, the kind of answer that made danger feel like gossip. Nora knew better. Knowing better and wanting to reply were suddenly 2 different things. The next day at work, Nora stared at spreadsheets and the peeling wall beside her desk, unable to stop thinking about him. Her safe, predictable life suddenly felt flat, like an old photograph. She texted that his reputation was persuasive. It was the closest she could get to admitting she was curious. Gabriel waited before replying, long enough for her to check her phone twice, then 3 times. "Did it persuade you?" he wrote. She answered, "Not completely." His reply came back with 1 word, "Good." That night, Nora lay awake, phone beside her pillow, hating how badly she wanted it to light up again. By morning, she was exhausted. The first thing she did was reach for her phone. No message. Relief came first. Disappointment followed so closely she could not deny it. She buried herself in work, hoping numbers would do what they always did, put the world back in order. Then Beth from accounting asked about the party, and Nora shut down immediately. She said almost nothing. How could she explain that she had spilled champagne on a mob boss, survived, and somehow ended up waiting for his texts? Some stories sound insane until you are already trapped inside them. Nora tried to push Gabriel into something manageable, a dangerous man from a strange night, nothing more. Then a heavy cream envelope arrived at her office, hand-delivered by a man who vanished before anyone could ask questions. The name was written in black ink. Inside was an invitation to dinner in 1 hour, signed only with the initials GM. The note said there was no obligation. That phrase should have comforted her. Instead, it made the invitation feel more deliberate. Gabriel had reached into the one place that still belonged to her, and now even her desk did not feel entirely safe. Nora stood in the office bathroom staring at herself in the mirror, with the invitation folded in her hand. It was only dinner, a public place. 1 hour, she could say no. She repeated those facts until they stopped sounding like facts. At 5:30, she stepped outside and found a sleek black car, waiting at the curb. The driver knew her name. He knew where she worked. He held the back door open as if this had all been arranged long before she decided. Nora looked back at the office windows, then at the car. Her phone buzzed once in her palm. The driver introduced himself as Miles Grant. He was huge, broad-shouldered, and calm in a way that made his size feel even more intimidating. Nora asked whether Moretti was asking or demanding. Miles considered the question like it deserved an honest answer. He would say asking, he replied. Most people would hear demanding. That honesty lowered her guard before she could stop it. Then Gabriel texted with dry humor, and a line about financial consequences for missed appointments. Nora almost smiled. Almost. She got into the car anyway, and the door closed with a soft final click. Gabriel chose an upscale restaurant in River North, crowded enough to make Nora feel safer, and elegant enough to remind her whose ground she was standing on. He rose when she approached. The gesture looked respectful, but it also disarmed her. In a charcoal suit and expensive watch, he seemed polished, controlled, untouchable. He told her to call him Gabriel again, as if he were quietly removing a locked door between them. Nora started talking about suit fabric, because fear made her stupidly practical. He watched her nervous chatter with faint amusement. She ordered plain pasta, needing at least one ordinary thing on the table. For a while, the conversation almost felt harmless. Gabriel asked about her work, and Nora relaxed despite herself. She explained that financial fraud usually happened because people got careless, lazy, or too confident. She liked when things balanced. She liked proof. Gabriel listened too closely. Then she mentioned his illegal businesses, and the warmth left his face. The silence that followed was clean and sharp. Nora's fingers tightened around her water glass. She had expected anger, and in that stillness, the restaurant noise seemed to fade around them. Nora admitted she had heard things in the hallway. DeMarco, blood, an upcoming hit. Gabriel did not deny it. That was worse. He only leaned back and told her fear kept people alive. The line sounded practical, almost protective, until she realized he was making fear part of the rules. He said he was dangerous, not with pride, but with a calm that made the word feel ordinary. Then he told her she had seen the man before the reputation. The words landed exactly where loneliness had left her vulnerable. For one reckless second, she wanted to believe that mattered. They began trading small truths after that. He mentioned insomnia. She admitted she had been anxious even as a child, the kind of kid who counted ceiling tiles to calm down. The mood softened. But Nora refused to let the dinner become something he controlled completely. When the bill came, she insisted on paying her part. Then she pulled out a pen and wrote an actual payment plan for the ruined suit, $42 a month, with interest if necessary. Gabriel stared at the paper, then laughed under his breath. Nora should have felt ridiculous. Instead, she felt seen. Gabriel accepted the payment plan, unsettled Nora more than refusal would have. He treated her terms seriously, folded the paper, and placed it in his wallet as if it mattered. After dinner, he did not try to touch her. He did not pressure her into his car. He let her take a cab home alone. Everything about it felt controlled but not cruel, safe, even. Nora laughed once in the back seat, shaking her head at herself. Across the street, Gabriel watched the cab pull away and kept his hand on the folded paper in his pocket. After that, the texts became routine. At first, they joked about the suit, and about lawyers, weather, terrible coffee, and whether cereal counted as dinner. Gabriel made ordinary conversation feel like a secret. Slowly, the danger around his name blurred at the edges. Late one night, Nora sat on her kitchen floor eating cereal from a mug when he called, and guessed exactly what she was doing. She should have been disturbed. Instead, she laughed. Loneliness made the attention feel warm. Outside her window, a dark car idled at the curb for almost 10 minutes before pulling away. Nora told him she hated that he noticed everything. Gabriel said the city got loudest when it was quiet, and somehow that sounded like something only he could understand. He invited her to his penthouse. The message sat on her screen like a dare. She read it again and again before replying with rules. She would take her own ride, She would leave whenever she wanted, and he would not send anyone to collect her. She told herself boundaries would make the choice safe, but a boundary is only as strong as the person on the other side is willing to respect it. Gabriel took too long to answer, long enough for Nora to regret the rules, then regret regretting them. Finally, he agreed. "I am learning," he wrote. At his tower, the private elevator, the quiet lobby, and the receptionist already knowing her name made her feel as if a place had been prepared for her without permission. His penthouse was spotless and cold, glass, steel, perfect surfaces, no family photos, no clutter. It did not feel lived in. It felt guarded. Nora stood near the door and suddenly understood that some homes are built like fortresses because the person inside is still under siege. She joked about bodyguards hiding in the walls because joking was easier than admitting she felt trapped. Gabriel told her she was safe, and part of her wanted to believe him so badly it hurt. Instead of offering her a drink or moving too close, he led her to a rooftop greenhouse. The change was startling. Lemon trees, white roses, rosemary and mint in the air, a jungle in the sky above Chicago. Nora's body relaxed before her mind allowed it. For a moment, the man beside her was not a mob boss. He was just a lonely man who had kept something alive. Gabriel told her about his mother's garden, and how his father had paved it over because softness disgusted him. He said it without self-pity, which made it harder to guard against. The greenhouse, he explained, was the one place he wanted nothing to be afraid of him. Nora looked at the roses and felt her anger shift into something more dangerous, sympathy. It was too easy to imagine the boy behind the man. Easy to think pain explained him. Outside the glass, the city glittered below them like another world. Inside, Nora forgot for a few minutes that wounded people can still wound others. She teased him about his terrible gardening skills, and when he admitted he had killed 3 basil plants, she laughed harder than the joke deserved. The sound changed the room. Gabriel looked at her like he had not expected laughter to survive in a place like this. Nora caught herself studying the small flaws instead of the larger danger. He was lonely. He was damaged. He was trying. Those thoughts arranged themselves into excuses before she could stop them. In the corner of the greenhouse, a security camera blinked once, red and quiet, watching everything. Gabriel did not touch her first. He lifted his hand and stopped just short of her skin, waiting. It looked like restraint, but it also forced her to make the choice. Nora hated that she understood that and still wanted to close the distance. When their fingers touched, the spark was immediate, sharp enough to silence every warning in her head. Then her phone rang. Her mother's name lit the screen, and reality slammed back into the greenhouse. Nora laughed too nervously as she answered. Gabriel stepped away, but his eyes stayed on her reflection in the glass. During the call, Gabriel gave her space. He did not hover. He did not listen openly. That restraint made him look considerate, and it only confused her more. When Elaine asked where she was, Nora lied before she had time to decide. After the call, Gabriel said the world stole whatever people left unguarded. It was bleak, but he made it sound like protection. Nora said she had to leave. He did not stop her. He only walked her to the elevator and let the doors close between them. The easy exit should have comforted her. Instead, it made her want to come back. Nora stepped out of Gabriel's tower into the rain, still carrying the scent of rosemary on her coat. He had told her not to ignore her real life, and somehow that made the whole night feel like her choice. She crossed the street without noticing the black sedan, parked under a broken streetlight. A camera lens followed her as she climbed into her ride. By morning, the greenhouse had already begun replacing the hallway in her memory. The roses were easier to think about than the blood talk, but someone now had photographs of Nora Parker leaving Gabriel Moretti's building. Nora was already in deeper than she wanted to admit. She checked her phone 6 times before lunch, then pretended she had not. When Gabriel finally asked her to dinner again, her heart jumped with a rush that felt uncomfortably close to happiness. To take back some control, she chose a cheap diner in Logan Square, a place with cracked booths and sticky menus, where no one cared about power. She thought familiar ground might make him less intimidating. Then Gabriel arrived, and people on the sidewalk moved out of his path without even knowing why. Denise, the waitress, barely looked impressed. She called him sweetheart, handed him a menu, and walked away. Nora almost relaxed. Then Gabriel slid into the booth and said she had chosen the place to make him uncomfortable. Just like that, he took away her small advantage. Not mock the diner, he adapted, and wore humility like another tailored suit. Nora watched him fit himself into her world with unsettling ease. The scariest thing was not that he looked out of place. It was that, after 5 minutes, he almost did not. Gabriel joked that he could buy the diner, then glanced at Nora and added that he would not invoice him for emotional damages. She laughed despite herself. To reclaim something, she ordered pancakes for him without asking. A different man might have bristled. Gabriel accepted it, letting her win that tiny battle. But between jokes, he reminded her that his world had rules harsher than hers. Nora tried to focus on the syrup bottle and the chipped mug in front of her. Outside, the same dark sedan rolled past the diner window, slow enough that Gabriel's eyes followed it. When Gabriel talked about his world, he did not soften it. He said comfort was dangerous if it made you careless. He said acting normal was a muscle, and he had trained it badly. Nora should have found that chilling. Instead, his honesty made him feel more real than the men who hid their flaws behind polite smiles. Then Denise returned, and Gabriel was suddenly pleasant in exactly the right way. Not warm exactly, accurate. He seemed to know what each person needed from him and gave just enough. Nora wondered how often kindness was instinct for him and how often it was calculation. When Gabriel said he wanted to meet her family, Nora's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. He made it sound simple, but she felt the meaning underneath. He wanted to understand the people who could still pull her away. When he arrived at Elena's house with expensive wine and flowers, he looked almost respectable. Owen was not fooled. Nora's brother stood in the doorway, arms folded, eyes cold. He did not care about the gift. He looked Gabriel over like a threat report and let him inside only because Nora asked him to. At dinner, Gabriel performed normal life carefully. He ate pot roast, answered Elaine politely, and kept his hands visible on the table as if even his stillness had been planned. Owen watched everything. When he asked why Gabriel needed a personal driver, Gabriel turned surveillance into protection with one smooth sentence. Then Owen asked what he actually did for a living. Gabriel gave the kind of answer rich men give when the truth has too many sharp edges. Real estate, investments, restructuring. Elaine's fork paused over her plate. Even Madison, visiting for once, stopped smiling. Owen said chaos followed men like Gabriel, whether they invited it or not. Gabriel did not answer right away. The silence told Nora he knew it was true. Then he said he was never careless with things that belonged to him. The room went colder. Nora heard it before Gabriel seemed to understand what he had revealed. Things belonged. Owen's jaw tightened. Elaine looked at her daughter, not Gabriel. Madison looked down at her phone, pale for the first time that evening. Nora noticed, but only for a second. Gabriel had already lowered his eyes, and the damage had reached the table. After Gabriel left, Elaine did not raise her voice. That made the warning heavier. She told Nora that a man like him did not simply visit a life. He entered it, rearranged it, and called the new shape safety. Nora defended him too quickly, then hated how desperate she sounded. Next morning, the consequences arrived before she even reached her desk. Her office went quiet when she walked in. Someone minimized a gossip page too late. Beth would not meet her eyes. Nora looked from face to face and realized the private world she had been trying to understand had just become public. A gossip site had posted her name, job, neighborhood, and a blurry photo of her leaving Gabriel's building. By lunchtime, strangers online had turned her into whatever story they wanted. Gold digger, victim, idiot, mistress, criminal girlfriend. Her boss called her in and suggested she work from home for safety. He said it gently, but the meaning was clear. Not want her trouble in the building. Nora packed her laptop while coworkers pretended not to stare. Outside, a photographer lifted his camera. She ducked her head too late. Her ordinary life was peeling away in strips. Nora hid in a bathroom stall, gripping her phone so hard her fingers ached. Gabriel called before she could decide whether to call him. His voice was controlled, but the control had teeth. He gave instructions, leave through the back. Miles was coming. Do not speak to anyone. Nora snapped. She told him she was not a package to be moved. He said it was not a debate. That was the wrong thing to say. She threatened to get on a train and disappear. For the first time, Gabriel went silent, and in that silence she heard fear wearing the mask of command. Gabriel told himself he was being rational. That was easier than admitting he was terrified. By evening, Miles was stationed outside Nora's apartment, polite and immovable. Gabriel called it protection. Nora called it surveillance. The street outside her building felt different now. A man lingered near the corner store too long. A car slowed whenever she approached her door. Maybe she was imagining some of it. Maybe not. That was the worst part. Fear made every shadow look informed. And every time she considered calling the police, she remembered Gabriel's world had already reached places ordinary people never saw. The pressure spread through her family. Elaine called too often. Owen wanted her to come home. Madison suddenly acted concerned, which somehow made everything worse. Gabriel flooded the problem with lawyers, drivers, safe routes, safe houses. Help arrived so quickly it felt like a net. When Nora confronted him at the penthouse, he looked exhausted enough to almost soften her anger. Then she found the files. Her address, her Mother S. house, Owen S. work schedule, patterns of movement, notes about risk. Gabriel had mapped her life without asking. Nora held the folder in both hands and felt something inside her go cold. Gabriel did not deny it. He only said asking permission would not have changed the danger. That was the moment Nora understood how his mind worked. Consent became optional whenever fear got loud enough. She told him she was a person, not a weakness in his security system. Then he revealed more about DeMarco, about the threat closing around him, about enemies who would use her because he cared. Nora listened, but his secrets no longer sounded like protection. They sounded like a cage built one careful bar at a time. Gabriel said he was trying to keep her alive. Nora asked what part of her would be left. Gabriel believed love meant eliminating every threat before it could touch her. He could not understand why that frightened her. Nora told him he was confusing care with ownership, and the word ownership landed hard. At the elevator, she drew the cleanest lines she could. If he followed her in, he proved everyone right. Gabriel stood there, breathing hard, every instinct in him fighting to take control. The doors began to close. Nora expected him to step forward. He did not. The last thing she saw was his face, stripped of power for once, caught between wanting to keep her and knowing he had no right to. Walking away did not feel brave. It felt like tearing out something that had already grown roots. Outside, Chicago's cold hit Nora so hard her eyes watered. Vivian Cole found her near the curb, calm and elegant, a woman who clearly understood Gabriel's world too well. She got Nora out of the wind and into the back of a quiet car that smelled faintly of leather and cigarettes. Vivian did not comfort her with lies. She said Gabriel was not just protecting Nora. He was trying to make her proof that he could still be saved. Vivian's warning stayed with her. A man who turns one woman into his redemption can start calling possession, devotion, and fear love. Gabriel might truly want to escape his father's shadow, but he was still moving inside a machine built from violence. His attempt to go legitimate had shaken old alliances, and shaken men looked for leverage. Nora was leveraged now, whether she wanted to be or not. Vivian told her not to confuse being important to him with being safe. Then she added one more thing. DeMarco did not find people by accident. Someone close had opened a door. Back in her apartment, Nora turned to the only thing that had never lied to her, numbers. While the city slept, she opened old shipping invoices and routine payment records, trying to calm down by making things balance. Then she saw it. Payment to Northline Civic Supply, appearing every 12 days with almost mechanical precision. Too neat, too quiet, the kind of pattern designed to be ignored, because each amount looked harmless alone. Nora leaned closer to the screen. A second company appeared beside it, then a third. Her pulse changed. Not a counting noise. This was a trail. The trail led toward DeMarco Holdings and then curved carefully under Gabriel's legitimate businesses. The payments were small enough to stay beneath federal attention, routed through a front company in Cicero, and buried under supply costs. Nora's chest tightened as the shape of it emerged. Someone was not just hiding dirty money. Someone was planting it where Gabriel's clean operations would be blamed. Her phone lit up with his name, just as she found the matching transfer dates. She did not answer. For several seconds, she only stared at the screen, trapped between the man she had left and the danger only she seemed to see. Nora worked through the night. Northline Civic Supply, Lakefront Materials, 2 vendors, then 4, then a chain of shell companies linked by addresses, timing, and tiny repeated transfers. The data settled into place with a precision that made her skin crawl. She printed pages, marked dates, drew arrows, and built a map across her kitchen table. Outside, a car door shut somewhere on the street, and she froze. Nothing happened. She went back to the numbers, but her apartment no longer felt like a refuge. It felt like a room with too many windows. By 3 in the morning, she found the shared Cicero address. 2 front companies had used it, with ownership changing hands 3 times in 9 months. Whoever built this had been patient, careful. They were poisoning Gabriel's legitimate businesses from inside, while letting the evidence point back toward him. Nora's eyes burned, but adrenaline kept her moving. She checked the dates against the party, the gossip leak, the pressure from DeMarco. The pieces aligned too cleanly to be coincidence. Her hands shook as she copied the files. If she was right, This was not a scandal waiting to happen. It was an execution dressed as paperwork. Adrian DeMarco was not coming with guns first. He was using invoices, shell companies, and federal exposure to bury Gabriel under something harder to shoot his way out of. Nora hated what came next. Only hours after walking away from Gabriel's control, she was about to call him back into her life. At 4:12 in the morning, she pressed his name. He answered instantly, breathless, like he had been holding the phone. She told him she had found something. His voice changed at once. Do not send it. Do not move. He would be there in 20 minutes. Nora looked at the door and said no. She refused to let his men flood her apartment. If they were meeting, it would be somewhere neutral inside his world, not inside hers. The greenhouse, quiet, visible, controlled, and left through the back of her building, under a fake rideshare name. Every parked car looked occupied. Every reflection in a store window made her flinch. When she reached Gabriel S. Tower, Miles was already waiting, eyes scanning the street. Upstairs, Gabriel looked less like a kingpin and more like a man who had not slept, sleeves rolled up, stubble dark on his jaw, fear hidden badly behind focus. Seeing him weakened Nora before she could stop it. Gabriel looked her over first, searching for injuries, then for fear. Morning light filled the greenhouse, turning the leaves silver and soft. But the peace was an illusion. Frank Duca stood in the shadows, with the hard face of a man who solved problems permanently. Beside him, June Calloway, Gabriel's lawyer, had a tablet already open. Gabriel had promised no ambush of people. He had brought people anyway. Nora looked at him, and he knew exactly what she was thinking. Even now, his first instinct had been to protect by controlling the room. Nora did not waste time arguing. She took control the only way she knew how, with evidence. Page by page, she laid out the pattern. North Line, lakefront, low-level transactions, repeated timing, shared addresses. Adrian had built a financial parasite, feeding dirty money through small, ordinary channels until Gabriel's clean companies would look infected. Frank's expression tightened as she explained it. His people had been watching doors, cars, rooftops, guns. Nora had looked at the books. That was where the real attack had been hiding all along. Frank's specialists had missed it, and everyone in the greenhouse knew it. June stopped typing halfway through a note. Miles shifted once, uncomfortable. Nora said Adrian DeMarco's name, and the room went utterly still. Gabriel stared at the transaction sheets. Something in his face disappeared. No shouting, no table slammed, just a cold, empty focus that made Nora's stomach turn. She had seen his charm, his restraint, even his fear. This was something else. This was the man people whispered about. The man who could turn a name into a target without raising his voice. The moment Gabriel had the Cicero address, he moved as if the rest had already been decided. Frank reached for his phone. Miles stepped toward the door. Nora stepped in front of Gabriel before she could think better of it. She told him this was exactly what DeMarco wanted. Blood, retaliation, proof that Gabriel had never changed. Gabriel's eyes were flat and frightening. Nora asked if he really wanted to become his father's son in the only way that mattered. For 1 second, the room cracked. The mob boss vanished. The wounded boy underneath looked out, furious and terrified. Nora pushed for evidence instead of blood. Gabriel brought in Rachel Voss, a federal defense attorney, with the kind of presence that made even Frank shut up. The greenhouse became a war room. Nora mapped the money trail. Voss contacted the right people without saying too much over open lines. Frank hunted for internal leaks. Miles handled the perimeter. Gabriel stood near the glass, hands clenched, fighting the urge to direct every breath in the room. Nora saw the battle in him. This time he was not fighting DeMarco first. He was fighting himself. For once, Gabriel asked what Nora wanted instead of telling her what would happen. It was such a small thing that she almost hated how much it affected her. She chose her mother's house and told him not to touch her job, her lease, or her bank account. Later, alone among the lemon trees, Gabriel admitted he had treated her life like a board he could secure because fear made him stupid. The honesty hit harder than another apology would have. Nora did not forgive him completely, but she stayed long enough to hear the rest, and that was its own danger. The fragile peace lasted less than a day. Miles warned them that DeMarco's people were moving, but Nora was tired of living like cargo under guard. The next afternoon, she pushed Miles away outside her office and insisted on walking 1 block alone. 1 block. That was all she wanted. She barely reached the corner before Adrian DeMarco stepped out of a black car. He was not rough or loud. He was polished, handsome in a cold way, dressed like a man who had never needed to threaten anyone twice. In one hand, he held a silver lighter. DeMarco flicked the lighter open, then shut, the soft click cutting between his words. He knew exactly how close to stand. Not close enough for Nora to scream, close enough for fear to do the work. He called her Gabriel's conscience and smiled as if the phrase amused him. Then he asked whether she enjoyed being used as proof that a monster could become a man. Every empire has a loose thread, he said, clicking the lighter shut. Gabriel found his. Nora's face stayed still, but the words found their mark. Before leaving, DeMarco told her Gabriel was only pretending to be someone new because she made the costume flattering. Then he added one last detail, soft enough that only she could hear. Your cousin was very eager to prove she knew important people. Nora went cold. Madison. The phone. The silver-haired man at the party. DeMarco got back in the car and vanished into traffic, leaving the lighter S click trapped in her head. That night, at the evidence handoff, Nora sat beside Gabriel in a high-end restaurant, purse clutched tightly in her lap. Inside was the flash drive that could destroy DeMarco. Dinner had barely begun when a waiter placed a folded note beside Nora's glass. He was gone before she opened it. The message was short enough to chill her. Give him the drive, or watch what happens to the people who still answer your calls. Beneath the words was a printed photo of Elaine's front porch. Nora's blood went cold. Gabriel noticed the change in her face immediately. If she showed him the note, he might explode in the middle of the restaurant, exactly as DeMarco wanted. So she smiled too brightly, said she needed the restroom and stood. Her legs felt almost separate from her body. Nora did not go to the restroom. She pushed through a service door, found a stairwell, and ran into the pouring Chicago rain. Her heart hammered so hard she could barely hear the traffic. Halfway down the block, one heel snapped. Pain shot through her ankle, but she kept moving, the flash drive clenched in her fist. Gabriel called. She answered, because she was already scared enough to need his voice. He asked where she was, and when she hesitated, his tone went cold. Then a black sedan turned the corner and began moving toward her, slow and deliberate. A text arrived from an unknown number. Nice suit. Nora stopped breathing. DeMarco was watching. The sedan rolled closer. She whispered Gabriel's name into the phone, and something in him snapped quiet, not loud. He told her to run. Nora ducked into a parking garage, wet hair stuck to her face, broken heel scraping concrete. The garage swallowed the city noise. Footsteps followed, amused, telling her she did not belong in their world. Nora gripped the flash drive until the plastic cut into her palm. Then another shadow moved between the pillars. Miles hit the man first. Gabriel arrived seconds later, silent and precise, with none of the chaos Nora expected. That made it worse. His violence was not rage spilling over. It was discipline. The hitman went down before Nora fully understood what had happened. Gabriel's first look was not at the man on the ground, but at her hand, at the flash drive, at the bloodless cut across her palm. Nora should have stepped away. Instead, she clung to him when he reached her. A moment, the man who frightened her also felt like the only thing between her and the dark. By morning, the city was drowning in rumors. DeMarco tried to twist the story first, painting Gabriel as the mastermind and Nora as either a fool or a willing accomplice. Nora's numbers did not care about rumors. The financial map went to the right hands. Dates, transfers, shell companies, fake vendors, shared addresses, one piece after another locked into place. DeMarco's beautiful structure began to crack in public. Reporters chased the wrong story until the evidence forced them to turn. For the first time in days, Nora watched chaos meet something colder than power, proof. With federal pressure closing in, Adrian demanded a final meeting. Gabriel agreed, because men like them always wanted one last look at the person trying to bury them. They met in a private club where the wood was dark, the lighting low, and old money seemed soaked into the walls. Adrian did not waste time. He clicked his silver lighter open and shut while mocking Gabriel's legitimacy, his charity plans, his attempt to become respectable. Then he brought up Gabriel's father with surgical cruelty. Nora was not there, but her words were. Gabriel felt them like a hand on his wrist. Before he could reach for the old kind of answer, Adrian wanted violence. He needed it. If Gabriel became the monster everyone expected, Adrian could still claim he had been right. Gabriel did not give him that. He stayed seated, hands still, voice low. When federal agents entered the club, Adrian's lighter clicked one last time before it slipped from his hand. Gabriel did not gloat as they took him away. He looked almost empty. Later, in the greenhouse, Nora found him standing among the white roses, untouched, coffee cooling beside him. DeMarco was gone, But the old world had not vanished with him. It had simply lost one face. Gabriel still carried the folded payment plan in his wallet. The paper was worn now, softened at the edges. Nora saw it when he took it out and placed it on the table between them. He admitted he had wanted to kill Adrian. Not threaten, not punish, kill. Nora did not flinch, and that seemed to undo him more than fear would have. She did not excuse him. She did not pretend the confession was romantic. She only told him the truth had to be where they started. Or there was no starting at all. Not know how to be good. Morning brought the work no one could make poetic. On Gabriel's desk sat 3 thick folders: names, roots, assets, favors, debts, the skeleton of the Moretti syndicate. Taking it apart meant cutting into the thing that had protected and poisoned him since childhood. Frank Duca saw the folders and went pale with anger. He warned that dismantling too quickly would put targets on every back in the organization. Men would panic. Allies would turn. Enemies would test the walls. Gabriel listened without moving. For the first time, he looked less like a man guarding an empire, and more like a man preparing to bury one. Frank warned him there would be retaliation. Gabriel only said, "Then they bite." He was no longer pretending the cost did not exist. Nora left before dawn the next morning. She was falling for him. Maybe already had, but she refused to let love become another word for disappearance. Gabriel watched her go and did not send miles after her. He did not track her phone. He did not call every 10 minutes. Frank told him he had spent his whole life at war and might not know who he was without an enemy. I knew Frank was right. Dismantling the syndicate took weeks of ugly work. Gabriel cut ties with men who smiled while calculating whether he had gone weak. He walked away from roots, favors, and money that had once made the Moretti name untouchable. Carlo Vin confronted him in a back room, furious and afraid, saying Gabriel's father would be disgusted. Carlo wanted the old rules because they were the only rules he understood. Gabriel did not argue. He simply said he was destroying his father's legacy on purpose. For once, the name Moretti did not sound like a weapon. It sounded like something being laid down. Gabriel returned to the greenhouse when the work left him raw. Nora found him there one evening, standing among the lemon trees, like he did not know what to do with his hands. She did not crowd him. She had learned that space was sometimes the kindest thing she could offer. When Carlos' insult came up, Gabriel tried to dismiss it. Nora asked him to admit it hurt. The question irritated him because it was true. New job in forensic accounting. Real work. Legal work. Work that used her mind without tying her to his underworld. Gabriel smiled, but it cost him effort not to interfere. Nora's new work brought its own danger, and for once the danger was hers, not only Gabriel's. She was uncovering fraud for people who could not afford to miss it, and that made enemies of a quieter kind. Gabriel's first instinct was to surround her with drivers, lawyers, cameras, and locked doors. He almost reached for his phone. Then he stopped. The pause was small, but Nora saw it. He asked what she needed instead. She said she needed him to ask that question more often. Later, when they held hands, it felt different. Not like being claimed, like being met halfway. Nora rebuilt her ordinary life piece by piece. A modest office, bad coffee, real clients with real problems. No marble lobby, no armed men outside the door. She refused Gabriel's offers to upgrade everything, refused to let his money quietly replace her choices. He struggled with it more than he admitted. When she mentioned her office was short on resources, his first instinct was to fix it before lunch. He knew exactly whom to call. Instead, he gripped his coffee cup and asked if she wanted advice, or just wanted to complain. Nora stared at him, then laughed so hard he looked offended. The harder test came when Gabriel visited Elaine alone. No bodyguards, no bulletproof car waiting at the curb, no expensive gifts large enough to distract from the man carrying them. He arrived with grocery store flowers, because Nora told him her mother hated dramatic gestures. Elaine opened the door and looked past him, searching for the threat that was not there. That, more than any apology, unsettled her. Over coffee, Gabriel did not try to charm his way out of the past. He answered questions plainly. Some answers hurt the room. He gave them anyway. At dinner with Elaine and Owen, Gabriel faced the family without armor. Owen was hostile from the first minute, and Gabriel let him be. When Owen threatened him quietly over the sink, Gabriel did not turn the threat into a contest. He said Owen had every right to hate him if he hurt Nora. Through the meal, he listened more than he spoke. He cleared plates without looking for praise. Elaine watched him closely, still unsure whether restraint was change or just another performance. No right to demand trust. The only thing he could do was keep showing up without trying to own the room. Before he left, Elaine told him something that stayed with him. Normal men could break hearts quietly, she said, But under Gabriel's shadow, Nora had somehow become braver. Elaine did not call that a blessing. She called it dangerous. She warned him not to mistake Nora's strength for permission to test it. Gabriel promised he would not. Months passed. Public gossip faded, then returned in smaller waves whenever a reporter needed a headline. Madison eventually admitted she had shared Nora's details to impress the wrong people. Forgiveness did not come quickly. This time, Nora did not make herself small to keep the family peaceful. Nora was no longer the woman who apologized for taking up space. She spoke more clearly now, stood straighter, and stopped shrinking when powerful people entered a room. Gabriel was changing too, though not in clean, easy ways. He put money into legal aid, scholarships in his mother's name, and community gardens that he secretly checked on too often. Nora teased him because he still could not keep a cactus alive. He told her the cactus had been hostile. She laughed, and the greenhouse seemed warmer for it. The place built from his mother's grief was slowly becoming something neither of them had expected. The greenhouse changed because Nora changed it. A cracked pot appeared beside the perfect planters, then an old blanket, then a mug with a rude slogan Gabriel pretended to hate and always used. She did not ask permission to make space for herself there. She simply did. One snowy evening, Gabriel handed her an envelope. Inside was the receipt for the ruined suit, marked paid in full, with interest paid in the form of one life permanently altered. His hand shook slightly. Nora looked up and realized the terrifying Gabriel Moretti was nervous. Not strategically tense, not watchful, nervous. Gabriel got down on one knee among the lemon trees, and for him, the movement looked almost painful. He told her he was done disguising fear as love, done calling control protection, done building cages and decorating them well enough to seem kind. Then he gave her the one thing he had once feared most, the freedom to say no and walk away. Nora did not stay above him. She knelt too, meeting him eye to eye. Her answer came with conditions. No secrets, no hidden violence, no buying her apartment building. Gabriel laughed once, broken and relieved. Then she said yes. The ring proved he had listened. It was not huge or loud or designed to announce his wealth. It was an antique ring with a pale diamond and 2 small emeralds, quiet enough to belong beneath the glass roof of the greenhouse. Nora looked at it for a long time before letting him slide it onto her finger. Later, their wedding was small and private on a secluded estate in Illinois. No press, no grand spectacle, no room full of people waiting to turn love into gossip. The ceremony felt fragile because it was honest. Everyone there knew peace had not come easily. Even on the wedding day, the past still moved at the edges. Madison tried to apologize, polished and nervous, but Nora did not let a few pretty words erase years of being made small. She asked for change, not performance, and Madison finally had no clever answer. Downstairs, Frank and Miles kept scanning the tree line out of habit, unable to stop being men built by danger. Just before the music began, Vivian Cole handed Nora a folded note. Nora opened it with cold fingers. It contained only one line: "Do not mistake a quiet day for a finished war." She folded it back up and walked toward the aisle anyway. When Nora walked down the aisle, Gabriel looked as if breathing had become difficult. The man who once made rooms go silent now stood under white roses, with nothing to command and nowhere to hide. Their vows did not pretend they were simple people with a simple love. Nora promised honesty without surrender. Gabriel promised respect without ownership. The words were not decorative. They were terms of survival. When he said he would not command her, Owen looked down at the ground, jaw tight. Elaine cried quietly. Gabriel kept his eyes on Nora, because looking away felt like cowardice. 2 years later, the Moretti name sounded different on their quiet Michigan farmhouse. It no longer opened every door or frightened every room. Out there, it was just a name on mail, on property papers, on a little girl's birth certificate. Gabriel knelt in the garden with their 18-month-old daughter, Lily, showing her how to press seeds into soil. The same hands that had once been trained for violence now guided tiny fingers gently through dirt. Nora watched from the porch with coffee cooling in her hands. Peace did not look dramatic. It looked like this, and that was why it felt almost impossible. When old threats surfaced in the news, or in the eyes of men who still remembered, Gabriel did not pretend his past had vanished. He named it, sometimes with dry humor, sometimes with silence. Nora did not split him into a saint or a monster, because life had already taught her better. She had seen the man in the parking garage. She had seen the father in the garden. Both were true. Gabriel pointed to the seeds and told Lily that the dark soil did not mean something was dead. Nora heard the words and knew he was speaking to himself too. Then Lily ruined Gabriel's white shirt with 2 muddy hands. For one still second, the old symbol returned. A stained shirt, a ruined night, the moment everything began. Gabriel looked down, then laughed so hard Lily laughed too. The memory lost some of its teeth. No black sedan waited at the road. No silver lighter clicked in the dark. No one was running. And Gabriel reached for her hand with soil on his palm. He had spent a lifetime making people afraid. Now he was learning something harder: how to stay, how to feel, and how to choose the light without pretending the darkness had never been there. Every mafia boss story is not only about power, money, revenge, or fear. Beneath the violence and darkness, there is often a painful human lesson about choices, consequences, loyalty, family, and the price of ambition. This story reminds us that no matter how powerful a person becomes, no one can escape the truth forever. Hundreds of people, and make others tremble at the sound of his name. But if his heart is empty, his victory is never complete. The mafia boss in this story represents a man who built his life on control. He believed that fear was stronger than love, that silence was safer than honesty, and that power could protect him from pain. For years, he may have won every battle in the streets, in business, and among his enemies. But the most important battle was never outside him. It was inside his own heart. That is where he truly lost himself. One of the most meaningful lessons from this story is that power without morality becomes a prison. Many people dream of becoming rich, respected, or feared. They think success means having control over others. But real success is not measured by how many people obey you. It is measured by how many lives you protect, how much peace you create, and how much good remains after you are gone. The mafia boss had money, influence, and protection, but he did not have peace. His life shows us that a person can be surrounded by luxury and still feel completely alone. Another important lesson is that loyalty is valuable, but blind loyalty can destroy lives. In the world of crime, loyalty is often treated like the highest law. People are expected to follow orders without question. Never mean giving up your conscience. A loyal person does not simply protect someone's secrets. A loyal person also has the courage to stop someone from destroying themselves. This story teaches us that loyalty without honesty is dangerous. Real loyalty should be connected to truth, respect, and moral responsibility. The story also shows the heavy cost of revenge. Revenge often feels powerful in the beginning. It gives a person the illusion that pain can be answered with pain. But revenge rarely heals anything. Instead, it creates a chain of suffering that keeps growing. One act of revenge leads to another. One betrayal leads to another. In the end, everyone loses something. The mafia boss may have believed that revenge would restore his honor, but what it truly did was steal his humanity piece by piece. This is a powerful reminder that forgiveness is not weakness. Sometimes, forgiveness is the strongest decision a person can make because it breaks the cycle of hatred. Family is another central lesson in this kind of story. Many mafia bosses claim they do everything for family. They say they commit crimes to protect the people they love. But protection without honesty can become another form of harm. A family does not only need money or security. A family needs trust, emotional safety, and love that is not poisoned by fear. If a father, husband, brother, or son becomes powerful but loses the ability to show tenderness, then his family may live in a beautiful house, but still feel trapped inside it. This story reminds us that children and loved ones often pay the price for the choices of powerful men. The mafia boss may think his decisions only affect his enemies, but every secret, every violent act, and every betrayal leaves a shadow over the innocent people around him. That is why one of the strongest educational messages is this: before making a decision, we must ask ourselves who will suffer because of it. A selfish choice may bring temporary success, but it can create long-term pain for the people we love most. Another meaningful point is the danger of pride. Pride can make a person refuse to apologize, refuse to change, and refuse to admit they are wrong. The mafia boss may have spent years believing that saying sorry would make him look weak, but in reality, the ability to apologize is a sign of strength. It takes courage to face the damage we have caused. It takes maturity to admit that we hurt someone, and it takes true character to change before it is too late. The story also teaches that redemption is possible, but it always requires sacrifice. A person cannot simply say they have changed. They must prove it through action. Redemption means accepting responsibility, protecting the innocent, telling the truth, and sometimes losing everything that was built on lies. For a mafia boss, redemption may mean walking away from power, exposing corruption, saving someone he once endangered, or choosing love over control. The path to redemption is painful, because it forces a person to confront the worst parts of themselves. But it is also the only path that can lead to peace. From a human perspective, this story is powerful because it shows that even the hardest heart can still feel pain. Behind the cold eyes of a mafia boss, there may be regret, loneliness, childhood wounds, or a deep fear of being betrayed. This does not excuse his actions, but it helps us understand that broken people often break others when they never learn how to heal. The educational value here is important. Pain should not become an excuse to hurt people. Instead, pain should become a reason to grow, to seek wisdom, and to choose a better path. For viewers, the lesson is not to admire the criminal lifestyle, but to understand its emptiness. The suits, cars, mansions, and power may look attractive from the outside, but behind them there is often fear, guilt, and loss. A life built on violence can never bring true happiness. A life built on lies can never bring true freedom. And a life built on fear can never create real love. In the end, the story of a mafia boss is really a warning. It warns us that every choice has a consequence. It warns us that money cannot buy peace. It warns us that fear cannot replace respect. It warns us that revenge cannot heal a wounded heart. Most importantly, it reminds us that the greatest power a person can have is not the power to control others, but the power to control themselves. The deepest lesson is simple but meaningful. Choose character over pride, love over control, truth over silence, and forgiveness over revenge. No matter how dark a person's past may be, change is possible when they are willing to face the truth. But the longer someone waits, the higher the price becomes. A mafia boss may win the streets, defeat his enemies, and build an empire, but if he loses his soul, he has lost everything. True strength is not found in violence. True strength is found in responsibility, compassion, humility, and the courage to become better before it is too late.